Hey, Sunbow.
Hey, hi, just to know, are we still on in 10 minutes?
I'm on right now. I just got
Okay,
on.
okay, I haven't received the link yet, so just to.
You have not received it?
You sent it?
I sent it and you said it all looks good. It was, let me resend it.
Message?
It's in that longer message of what everybody got.
Okay, let me find it. Kind of hard to find something in Messenger. Okay, I got it. All right, thanks.
Yeah, password's Gaia.
Okay, good.
All right, bye. See you. Hi, Douglas. Good to see you. That's a lovely sunset or sunrise in the background.
Yeah, it's a
And
sunset.
thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sunset at the Oregon beach.
Oh, how beautiful. I would like to be there like tomorrow. That's not happening.
I'd like to be there today, but I'm in Walla Walla, so. And it's
I hear
hot
ya.
here, hot here.
How hot is
Oh,
it?
It's
Right.
94, I think it is.
Well, down
boy.
here in Alabama today, the heat index is over 100 and it was 97 in the shade here today. But it's nice because the humidity, which is usually in the 80%, is down like 30. So it's like being in the Northwest in the summertime.
So, Greg, how did you find out about the webinar?
I think it came from Sunbow.
Oh, good.
Because he and I connected here 4.5 years ago. I didn't know anything
Okay.
about him.
Oh,
And I didn't know. Thing is, I had moved from the Pacific Northwest in the northwest part of Washington. And I had retired from law enforcement where I'd worked for 40 years. And for 10 of those years, I worked with the U.S. Forest Service. And so when I moved down
okay, hold
here,
on. Can you
yeah,
hold on for a second, Doug?
sure.
Sunbow, your video is not on. You just
Yeah.
unmuted.
Yeah, just go ahead, right?
There you are. Great. Okay.
Sunbow,
Anyway.
we finally meet.
Yeah, nice. I remember your name, probably from Facebook, I guess.
Well, we joined in Facebook, kind of on a fluke, if you will, because Kamooh apparently connected the two of us together.
Mhm.
And you remember
Love it.
that I told you that I had a visitation from
Oh,
him?
yeah.
Yes. And you told me to tap 3 times on the wall and to feel for hands on me, and that's exactly what I got. So it all worked out.
Okay. Greg, I'm gonna be rude. Bear with me, but Sunbow, this is the photo that this woman took, who I'm friends with. I don't know her super well. She was on a train in Colorado. Sounds like it was one of those tourist trains. And she took a bunch of pictures out the window of the train. And when she was taking the pictures, she didn't see anything other than the landscape, the trees, the mountains. Then she got back to her condo and this showed up. Now, what's interesting to me is there's so many, as we know, fake photos, like the one that I sent you before, Sunbow, that was AI created.
Yeah,
This
there's a
one,
whole series going around. It's viral.
yeah. This one has a beam of light coming in from above. And as I'm even demonstrating here with my cursor, where this beam comes in and from the sky and goes down, I'm feeling chilly bumps of energy. And I keep on hearing from Mother Gaia and Sasquatch that this is authentic. There really was. And as I'm saying that, I'm feeling all this energy moving through me. So the message I heard was that this photo and the Sasquatch came to us this week, so you and I can use this from here on out. So you can, you know, talk to Kamooh, talk to your teams, but I keep on getting it. This is real.
All right.
But you don't need to make a decision now with them. I mean, you can sit with it.
Turning off my browser here. Yeah, I'm very cautious about commenting about any kind of photos and evidence because I'm sent some weekly, definitely. It goes with my conclusion on that is that people can believe whatever they feel, and it's not mine to decide what they want to believe. Some are very compelling. I've shared some myself. Sometimes people send me, sometimes people ask me to keep them private. And often they're the nicest ones. Otherwise, there's a lot of hoaxes and fakes out there. And
Yeah.
it's really, I mean, it's really hard to have the definite answer apart from our gut feeling.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm not going to detail analysis because I've done that, and it's not the point here.
yeah, and that's okay. I just was guided to pull this image up before we really got started and to have it on the screen so that you can see this beam of energy, this light, because it's coming from above and it goes down. I kind of lose it right in here. Hard to see. But when I saw that, and as soon as I saw the picture, I felt the energy. I'm like, oh, okay, it's a gift. But again, you have your ways and your needs and your far deeper history with all of this. Because as we know, there's a lot of, well, you're going to be talking about it. There are a lot of falsehoods, shall we say, about who Sasquatch is and why they're here, et cetera. Which is why we're, which is why we're gathering tonight. So we're going to get started in like 2 minutes. We already did start recording because I set it up so that we would just start recording as soon as I logged in and people started joining, just because that way I don't forget when we really officially start. So yeah. So how many people are here already? Let me stop share. But I think it's a beautiful photo of the landscape. Oh, and the woman who took it said she was going to contact. Yeah, it's very lovely mountains. I wouldn't mind hiking there. She said she was going to contact the company that owns the train, that does the train rides, because it's definitely sounded like it was one of those tourist train trips, and ask them if they had set up some placard or something that looked like Sasquatch figure, just to, you know, see what the company said. But I haven't heard back from her, so I don't know if she got any word back. All right, welcome everybody.
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to conclude on my take on it is that the two photos show the Sasquatch in the exact same position. So that's to consider, that's all.
Well, that's food for thought. Yeah, that's food for thought. So I see we have some people who are over in Europe who stayed up late. Welcome, Daphne. Love that you're here. Yasmin's here. Yeah, these are people who have been doing the Great Mother Love Way course with me. Daphne, hi, Daphne. Wow, look at all these familiar names. Yay. And people I don't know. Yay. All right, people are rolling in. Oh, it's 7:30. Here we go. So we're already recording, and I am going to, we really want to honor time, even though time is an interesting concept as it is. We won't go there. I'm going to officially start, Sunbow. You ready? Here we go. Hope you're ready. I know you are. Welcome, everybody. We've been chatting a little bit. So we are now officially starting the webinar, the Sasquatch, Guardians of Mother Gaia. And as I always do whenever I do any classes online or in person or whatever, I'm going to do a little bit of a spiritual call to the spirit teams that support the work I do within the Great Mother Love Way. So here we go. Oh. And that I am humbly calling on the creator, creatrix. Please bless us with all that we need for this beautiful webinar, for our highest good, for divine plan alignment, for Sasquatch's highest good, for divine plan alignment, for Mother Gaia's highest good, for divine plan alignment. Please bless us, creator, creatrix, from your celestial universal realms. Ho. Calling out to Mother Gaia, ho mama, ho mama, ho mama. We are your sacred children here in this beautiful and diverse and rather large sacred circle. Here to honor Sasquatch, here to learn about Sasquatch and the truth of them as opposed to the falsehoods, to support Sasquatch with their role here on Earth because it's very significant. And they haven't been treated so well for a long time. Asking for your love, Mother, asking for your support. And blessings, anything you wish to gift us, Mother, and Sasquatch, and all of us humans here, us two-leggeds, we humbly request this, ask this. Ho. Calling out now to all the spirit teams behind the Great Mother Love Way. In this work that I have surrendered to do to serve Mother and the new earth coming in. Calling on all the guardian teams, all the councils, all the beautiful spiritual ones from whatever realms you source from, here within the earth's multidimensional planes and off planet. Please bless us, please honor us, please hold us in a beautiful, beautiful sacred space so our transmissions are clear, the Zoom webinar is clear. And may everybody feel your love and blessings, even if it's on the really real subtle planes. And in particular, welcoming Sasquatch and your overarching council, honoring you, loving you. This is for you, this is for us, this is for Mother Gaia, this is for the new earth birthing at this time. Oh. Okay, so my name, for those of you who don't know me, is Mare Cromwell, and I'm a Gaia mystic and high priestess, author of several books of messages from Mother Gaia, visionary behind the Thousand Goddesses Gathering Global Grid, and I also lead the Great Mother Love Way year-long course, which has just started. So if anyone's really intrigued with that and you want to explore it, there's still a few spaces to hop in, a class or two late. This event today has been organized, quote unquote, by yours truly, under the heading of the Great Mother Love Way Incorporated nonprofit. The Great Mother Love Way Incorporated is an organization in service to the Great Mother, creating programs and events to help humanity wake up to the truth that we are part of a sacred sentient earth, and Mother Gaia yearns for us to remember her, and her love for us is tremendous. She's calling for all of us to come home to her and to all the sacred seen and unseen ones and heal into our true place on the planet. And so I will introduce Sunbow in a short bit. I want to go over a few administrative details. Please save your questions to the end. I cannot stress that enough. Please save your questions to the end. And it would be better if you put them in the chat box at the end, write them down while you're here on the webinar. It's very, very distracting for us if there's an active chat box of all these messages and questions. So for the sake of holding a really sacred container here, which we have started to create, the teams have come in to hold us, just please write your questions down on a piece of paper. Hopefully you've got something like near you. And then bring them up at the end because we are reserving time for Q&A. And I will also say, I don't usually do this, but I was guided to put this out there. If anyone is very disturbing, for whatever several reasons in the chat box, whatever, I will have to remove you from the webinar. I'm just going to need to do that. So heads up. And everyone will receive a replay email so that you can download this recording and listen to it later. Please download it in the next week, as I can't keep these recordings in the cloud forever. Good old Zoom bills you for that. So without much more further ado, it is my deepest honor to introduce SunBôw Truebrother. SunBôw Truebrother is an author, an international speaker, a networker, shamanic practitioner, psychic channel, contactee, and experiencer. He authored the Sasquatch Message to Humanity trilogy. He co-authored book 3 in that trilogy, and self-published Hairy Humanoids from the Wild, Encyclopedia of All Things Sasquatch, as well as the Contemporary Shamanic Journeys series. And I've read the first one of those really amazing adventures that SunBôw's had. And intense activations and initiations. He has 3 titles available in his Shamanic Journeys series, highly recommended. He has managed various groups and pages on social medias, and his website will be included in the replay email. And I do have this book of SunBôw's. I'm sorry, SunBôw, I haven't gotten all of them yet. Forgive me for that. I highly recommend you get this book. And the other ones too. It's just mind-blowing. And I actually have it as recommended reading in the courses that I lead. So why are we doing this webinar? I'm going to share a little personal story here, not going to be too long-winded. We are doing this webinar because I made a commitment on the spirit planes to help Sasquatch, to support them. They first came to me when I was writing my second book with Mother Gaia called The Great Mother Bible, which were conversations between her and me. And in the winter of 2014, late one night, a very strong skunk smell came into the house where I was living. And I knew it was something spiritual, but I didn't know what it was. It was kind of freaking me out. So I had my smudge bowl and I'm like trying to clear it, and it was still lingering in my bedroom all night. And I didn't feel like I was in danger or anything like that, but I'm like, I didn't know what it was. So the next morning, I contacted the Shoshone elder that I was working closely with at that time. And he just started laughing when he heard my story. He said, that's Sasquatch. He said, they are the keepers of Earth Mother. And I went, oh, okay. And it was really an honor they came to visit me. At the time, though, I didn't know it was, and I wanted them to leave because I didn't know who they were. Then in the fall of 2015, they came in again when somebody alerted me to SunBôw's messages from Kamooh that year. And when I connected with them that time, they really came in and they started giving me all these images and speaking to me about how challenging their lives are and how the forest fires were destroying their homes and the intentionality of the forest fires, which SunBôw talks about. Kamooh spoke to SunBôw about that. And they asked me to be a voice for them as I'm a voice for Mother Gaia. And I couldn't do it. I just was like, that's way out there for me. It's already out there enough for me to be saying to people, I'm talking to Mother Gaia, but I promised to help them. So then they came in again just a few weeks ago because there was this big Sasquatch event in the town nearby where they had people dressed as Sasquatch and vendors and t-shirts. And so one of them came at the end of that weekend, that Sunday evening, and made this really strange set of noises in the woods right outside where I live. And it was a younger Sasquatch. And I knew that this was a message that they're holding me to my commitment to them to help more people wake up to who they are and how important they are and our relationship with them. So, so here we are. Welcome everybody. And SunBôw, I'm going to start off with the first question. So who are Sasquatch? Can you please speak a little bit about this?
Yeah, we can define them like anything else. as well as what they are not. But let's begin with what they are, starting with their origins. So where do the stories of Sasquatch come from in the first place? All around the world, indigenous cultures, as well as mythologies and ancient legends, mention some hairy humanoids, to use a generic term. Every ancient culture, or almost every one, has a name for them. We could list hundreds of names. So that's part of our ancestral memories. It's part of our long past history. And it's nothing new, didn't come up in the 20th century. It just became to reach public interest in the last century. But so knowing where the stories come from, we can look at what those people say about them, those ancient cultures. We could start with the name first, because I use hairy humanoids as a generic term, but I most often say Sasquatch, because it's a native indigenous term from the Alcomelin dialect of the Coast Salish people of so-called British Columbia, the Salishan linguistic family, who call themselves Silas there, and the Chehalis Reserve along the Fraser Valley. There's various different Salishan dialects and languages, but and for all of them, Sasquatch is very present, very important in their traditions as well as their cultures. So we could look at where it comes from. There are other names. One is around the world that are well known. Let's just look at a few, like in the Himalayas, the name Yeti became known in the West in the 1880s due to British geographers' mention of that legend. It is also called in the Himalayas. It's called a Metagangmi. There's different spellings, which means a snowman. So Yeti and snowman are well-known terms in, for instance, in Russia or Asia. Going back further, the Chinese 4,700 years ago, probably the oldest documented mention in literature of them. It mentioned the Yeran. The Yeran as the wild, hairy man. And there's drawings of them in the encyclopedia back from those days. And so that name is still widely used in China. In Australia, the most famous name is Yowie. But there again, there's plenty of regional tribal names. In the south, they say more Duliga. There are tall ones and short ones. And in Europe, we could say they were known as the wood wolves that are shown on many coat of arms, for instance, or carvings or paintings in the Middle Ages. There's mention of them since the antiquity in Europe, and they were often called the wild man or the hairy man. Some legends.
Did you say wood wolves?
woodwose. There's different spellings. So WODE, WOSE is the most common, but there's that's Old English. But there's in German different ways of spelling that same name. That's there's thousands of representations of them in medieval Europe. So just as in a nutshell to give an idea that they've been everywhere, and people have been aware of them since thousands of years. And many tribal cultures have stayed in touch with those beings. So who are they, to answer finally this question? What do those ancient cultures say they are? Those who have interacted with them for thousands of years. Let's take one example of the Salish people, from whom the name Sasquatch comes, the name we're going to use the most. What do they say? Those I've had the blessings to meet many elders and chiefs and communities of the Salish, the Slatium, the Tsleil-Waututh, the Silas reserves of the so-called British Columbia, and among all those people, Sasquatch is common knowledge, as I've seen in other places, like for instance in Queensland, Australia, where the indigenous people all have a first or second-hand story of Sasquatch. They all have a relative, an encounter, and they have, you mention it, it's, oh yeah, we heard one last week or something. It's not like far-fetched for them. So what do they say they are, those Salish people? I heard from my own ears, from well-respected spiritual elders, more than once, that they are the keepers of nature. They are the guardians of Mother Earth, we can say. And they also carry ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom. They are the teachers of shamans and medicine people. So in many tribes, most people stay away from them, except the medicine people who act as interpreters and ambassadors for interspecies communication. What else do those people say? Their ancestral wisdom tells us that they are the messengers of Great Spirit. So they honor them in their ceremonies. They leave offerings for them. And so already, for some people, it's a little big to take, but what else do they say? They say they live between the spiritual and the physical world. They can move in between physical and spirit world. In other words, they are interdimensional. They can move between dimensions. And that's not New Age lore, that's ancestral wisdom. What else do they tell us? They say they are supernatural power. They are shapeshifters. They can appear and disappear. They can turn into a tree or an animal. They can speak to our spirit, to what we call telepathy. They also are connected with the star beings. So all that I've been saying the last minute, it's what the spiritual native elders who know the Sasquatch teach. I've heard that in sweat lodges and places that nobody lies. So to conclude on this first point, if we want to know the Sasquatch, we first of all, Sasquatch are the best source of knowledge themselves, or people who have had encounters, genuine encounters, and especially communication with them. And if you don't find one around you, try the native spiritual shamanic circles where this ancient knowledge is still preserved, but they won't come out in the public. Very often they won't speak at first unless you know, they know you can trust you and that you have your own experience. And then you will hear that everything that I've been asked to share by the Sasquatch is this ancient knowledge. It's nothing new. Which brings us to the next question.
The next question, yes, but I also really want to stress that your books are incredibly fact-filled. So I can't stress enough the opportunity to get Sunbow's books. Highly, highly recommended. So the next question, so as we are aware, because I know I've been at the checkout line numerous times, and some of those tabloids have these big headlines about these Bigfoot monsters, da 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 da. Would you talk about the human misperceptions of them and what they are not, as in what Sasquatch is not compared to the misperceptions? Popular theories. This is a huge topic, and I know it makes Sasquatch incredibly sad how they are perceived.
Certainly, and it is important to address it because what people know about Sasquatch, most of it is misinterpretation, it's misconceptions. Because what makes the bulk of the mainstream Sasquatch or Bigfoot literature is based on misconceptions. And we can explain how it came to be, why. Because we can take, for instance, the name Sasquatch when it first, apart from a couple mentioned articles prior to that, it first became popular in 1929 when John W. Burns, who was an Indian agent on the Chehalis Reserve, heard stories of Sasquatch and wrote an article that was widespread worldwide, and the name Sasquatch became known worldwide from then on. Before, actually, the name Bigfoot in 1958. So what happened is that some famous researchers who made the backbone of the mainstream Sasquatch research, which I call Sasquatchery. The list is long.
Sasquatchery?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Sasquatchery?
Yeah, it's like the making of an epic story that is sometimes mostly based on fiction.
Okay.
And a deep study of that can prove this. But to keep on track, let's take the case of John Burns, who popularized the name Sasquatch. He worked closely with the natives for years, and he, as a government agent, introduced the first Sasquatch days in Harrison Hot Springs, next to the Chehalis Reserve, which has an event honoring the Sasquatch that is still happening to this day, where I got to assist to those ceremonies once. And the opening of the 1938 Sasquatch Days, first time, the government agent said, well, we are doing this to honor the Sasquatch legend. Well, of course, we know it's just a legend and they don't exist, right? That's the first approach. All the native assistants there stood up and protested. They say the government agent doesn't know what he's talking about, because we know the Sasquatch, we know they exist. But that's an image that gives how it started with Western society being into Sasquatch. We continue with, let's say, John Green, which is probably the most famous Canadian Sasquatch researcher. One of the 4 horsemen of Sasquatchery, according to the editors. And those guys who made basically the mainstream of what people know about Sasquatch today. Well, he collected 6,000 reports. Many of them were from other researchers, but he kept about half a dozen that he kept quoting all the time. Because every mention of supernatural, psychic, interdimensional account, he discredited, he labeled as a superstitious mumbo jumbo. So those are the people who pose as the greatest authority in the Bigfoot world, right? He cherry-picked out of thousands of accounts what fit their big ape theory. And that became what everybody had access to. But if you look at what that's a bit of an arrogance and of we could say colonialist cultural appropriation to take the Sasquatch story from the natives, but discredit everything they thought about it. They say, oh, we know better.
Yeah, it didn't fit. Yeah.
We are scientific people, scientifically oriented. So they started to track a big ape, and John Green wrote entire chapters about how the Sasquatch cannot be people. They have to be animals, so we can't kill them. And we need specimens on our table, in our labs, to prove they exist. Chapters to advocate the killing. And that became the backbone, pretty much, of mainstream Sasquatchery after that. I would like to read, what are the Sasquatch, what they are not? I would like to read just here a couple of paragraphs from Hairy Humanoids from the Wild. It's,
can you, before you do that, just really quickly, before you do that, I just wonder if we can take a pause and just send love to Sasquatch. I know I didn't talk about this with you in advance. It just came forward right now. Can we just like pause for maybe 10 seconds and just as a group here, just send love to Sasquatch because they've been so mistreated. And they're very, very sensitive beings. You know far more about them. So I'll be quiet. 10 seconds here. Okay. They're receiving it. Thank you for allowing me to interrupt you there, but it just felt really important.
Right. Okay, so I would just like to read about the misconceptions people have about them. Hairy Humanoids from the Wild Encyclopedia of All Things Sasquatch, which I self-published. It's research in hundreds of sources. Many are quoted, and so far, from what I've studied in this domain, I believe it's still the most complete book on the topic. So I'll read here about what some people believe they are. Just examples like, are they an unknown primate? Are they a big ape? Are they relic hominin or hominid? So to simplify, in Russia, Dr. Boris Porshnev founded the hominology to study the hairy humanoids. It's a pseudoscience. It's not officially recognized, but that term hominology refers to unclassified hominoids. So basically, Dr. Porchev identified the hairy humanoids as the Neanderthals, an hominin. British primatologist Osman Hill saw them rather as a relic Homo erectus, as an hominin. Belgian-French cryptozoologist Hugo considered them as leftover of Pithecanthropus, an hominid, then tried to introduce the taxon Homo pungoid, but later retracted himself and adopted Portneuf Neanderthal interpretation. While Zhu Guoxin of China believed the hairy humanoids are descendants of Mecanthropus, also an hominid, Mark Hall proposed the Dryopithecus, an hominoid, opinion backed by cryptozoologist Laurent Tallman, who later opted for the Paranthropus robustus. And most recently, Dr. Melba Ketchum proposed the term Homo cognatus as an hominin among many theories. And the most famous, most popular classifies them as the Gigantopithecus, or giant ape, an hominoid, of which only a few bones are known. They don't know whether they are bipedal or quadrupedal. And
So these are all
supported
attempts.
now by Grover Krantz and Jeff Meldrum. So this is all attempts to try to fit the Sasquatch into the Darwinian
Right.
doctrine. But what we can say is they don't fit into the Darwinian model, because as us humans, they have a splice gene, as shown by the Sasquatch Genome Project, among other things, which means they were bioengineered. They were, so in other words, they are hybrid species, just like us human, but they are much older than us. And the Sasquatch Genome Project also showed, among other studies, that we have 99% the same DNA. They are our closest relatives in all of on this planet, probably in all of the universe. They also carry Homo sapiens genetics, showing they have interbred or share their genetics with us. So this, in a nutshell, to say that there's a lot of theories and people change heights and size and stuff. But if we ask the Sasquatch and what has been found about them, for sure, this is what we come up with. Other people about misconceptions. Many researchers or experiencers end up finding that there's more than just flesh and blood, as there's a lot of Bigfoot groups that say flesh and blood only, and they don't want to hear anything else, or it's just an animal. But even if it's a really hominin, they won't want to hear about any psychic or spiritual or paranormal aspect. Well, those people are missing out, because that's what explains the whole phenomenon. First of all, since ancestral days, that's what legends say. So that's what's being reported by over and over and over by experiencers. They first feel some kind of hypnosis, or you feel it being watched. You feel thoughts sent to your mind, and then all the rest of the supernatural we'll address later. So, but some people still have misconception, knowing they are paranormal beings, based on fear. Some things we can't explain or control often, it's easy to fear. So people will let's look from biblical interpretation that is quite famous in the US. There's different ones, but I consider, having to explain everything with the Bible. The Sasquatch are sometimes associated with the sons of Cain or the Nephilim, the fallen angels, or the giants of Genesis, and others think they're demons or incubus or different things like that. Again, because that's general attitude to consider everything supernatural as evil. You know, if it's something that is beyond what we can control in our physical world, it has to be from the devil in some mentality. So this is to explain what are the numerous misconceptions that circulate widely online about the hairy humanoids, and sadly, that's what people have most often access to, like monster movies. You know, there's hundreds of horror movies, you know, with Sasquatch that are based on the zero fact, but it sells. So if you want to know about Sasquatch, don't go with the mainstream information. The more some name or movie is famous, the more it is suspicious, and probably less accurate. So that's to cover this question here.
Thank you. So, history of humanity with them. There's a lot here. Would you share a bit about that?
Yeah. Well, like said earlier, the big part of all ancient traditions, we can mention some mythology, like the Sumerian tablets. There's Enkidu, who was the wild hairy man, giant and strong like the Anunnaki. In the Veda, and the Vedic scriptures, there's a story of Hanuman and the Vanara. The Vanara means the forest people, forest man, who actually joined Rama and building a stone bridge linking India to Sri Lanka, and that stone bridge is still visible today.
Wow.
60 kilometers or so. So there's also, well, in China, they have Sun Wukong, a famous ancient deity, powerful magical abilities, the Monkey King, basically, who could travel the sky gods and destroyed the dragon city, the dragon people city at the bottom of the oceans and things like that. So we can see that there's this concept of powerful, ape-looking, but we get the hairy people, has been present everywhere since.
So you're saying in China it was a monkey god?
Yeah,
but there's
Sun
another
Wukong,
more.
very famous, one of
Okay.
the 10 major deities of China.
Interesting.
There's also, if we go further in history, there's reports, like as I mentioned earlier, 4,700 years ago in Chinese encyclopedia mentioning the Yuan. But then we go through the antiquity and the Middle Ages, and there's here and there legends of they had different names. Well, it's hairy humanoids, we could say, that were seen, sometimes captured or killed in cases. And it goes on through the Middle Ages into historic report when we start having a more abundant documentation. And since the colonial days in the 17 and 1800s, there's a lot, dozens of reports of those big hairy humanoids around the world, North America, Australia, places that were colonized in those times, where even often they would see or again sometimes capture or kill them or just chase them, or there was drawings since the 1700s and reports, and through the 19th century. There's many times where what was the first reaction of those colonists were seeing them was to put up a hunting party or a posse to go after them, to try to catch them because they were afraid, or they wanted to find out or have a hunting trophy or something. So there has been always in history some kind of conflict, in some cases, between humans and Sasquatch. Even in some native legends, we a couple of times they had battles, and they say if you kill a Sasquatch, you lose your spirit, you become crazy. There's stories. Something skipped. But so we have these stories of conflict, but often like Beowulf. Beowulf, he had to go kill the troll mother and her son to rule over the land. And all these stories are reminiscence of misinterpretation, misunderstanding between human and the hairy people. And,
So Sunbow, can I go back just a second? You said there's one culture where if they killed a Sasquatch, they would lose their spirit.
Yeah.
What was it?
Tsimshian of the north. Yeah. The Tsimshian culture of the Northwest Pacific. I have a story when there's an island where some hunters saw a young Sasquatch and they started throwing pine cones at them, and they got kind of angry and killed this young Sasquatch. And they became crazy. And that place is not, since then, it's been cursed, and they don't go there anymore because the humans, again, created rupture, conflict. And that's most often the case.
Right.
People have stories about misconception. There's a lot of scare stories of attack, which when you look at in detail where it came from, the origin, most of them are made up or highly exaggerated. Like people see a Sasquatch walk by, they call that an attack, or they hear a call and they call that an attack. There's a list. I'm not sure if we have time to cover all that, but there's been an ongoing taking over of modern humans, Homo sapiens, or especially European cultures, over the hairy people who were the keeper of nature. So that made the history that might as well mention a few examples here. Let's say John Green quoted the expedition of Anderson down the Fraser River in so-called British Columbia, saying they met Sasquatch throwing stones at them. Actually, that report has been widespread and shared everywhere as like a fact. But you have to admit later that there was absolutely no evidence at all in the expedition archives of that. It was just a rumor you heard, and it became mainstream. Like others say, Leif Erikson fought against Sasquatch, but that's BFRO that spread that rumor, and everybody believes that now. But if you look at the fact in the saga, they don't say that at all. They say wild people covered with fur came in boats with bows. Well, that's looks more like natives than like Sasquatch. And they were called Skrellings by the Norse. But the report of the FRO called them Skellrings, misspell. And that misspelling has been spread hundreds of places with the wrong story. So just to give short examples, that there's a lot of stories of attacks and war with the Sasquatch that have just been made up out of nothing or misinterpretations. And
so I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, Sunbow, I know I keep on interrupting you, so bear with me, but this really speaks deeply, and we don't need to dwell on this, so I'm gonna just throw this in here though. It speaks so deeply to our fear of what is different and who is different, and how even if they are not aggressive, we still make them evil, or we don't want them around us, so we create this whole fear dynamic, which is perpetuated for as long as humanity's probably existed. When somebody would walk into a village from another faraway village and they were different, the fear was the first reaction. So I don't want to dwell on that, but this is just fascinating to me.
I believe this is important because that's what made the mainstream literature that everybody reads when they started being interested. All the stories they hear, like the so-called Bigfoot war with the Choctaws in the 1880s, that never happened. That's from a novel. And there's hundreds of websites quoting that as a fact. So, and I know for a fact because a Choctaw hereditary chief told me that's never happened. So there's plenty of examples, and there's some cases where, yeah, there might have been attacks from the Sasquatch, like the Ape Canyon story of 1928. That is also very famous. But if you read that again, that story, like in most of those cases, the hunters, the miners in that case, started shooting at them. Then they had a few rocks thrown on the roof of their cabin at night, and it freaked them out, and they left and never returned. But that place is still called Ape Canyon near Mount St. Helens nowadays. Mm-hmm. But there's more legend and extrapolation in those stories than the real fact, because the man who was part of that group wrote a book in 1967 that I quote in my encyclopedia, in which he described the real story beyond what the media covered. That they were the first one who aggressed those beings, and then those beings threw rocks, but not boulders. Nobody got hurt. And he also explained very clearly that he understood that those beings are supernatural and very wise. And that part they never put in the newspaper.
Wow.
So all this, just to summarize, is to say that what people will find in mainstream Bigfoot literature, don't trust it. Go, if you can find a Sasquatch yourself, find someone who's found one. And if not, look at the traditions, the circle, the cultures that have had a long knowledge of it. That's the way to do that.
Wow. So, so where do they live? There's a lot of misconceptions about this too.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if we look at for a big ape or a relict hominin from a very materialistic perspective, they cannot exist. I mean, we would have bagged some specimens, as some have been trying to do, but it's not because they're not limited to this physical plane. They love nature. They are the keepers of nature. They enjoy a walk in the wilderness, eating berries, whistling with the birds, and all this. But they are not bound to this physical world. And so if their territory is invaded or there's intruders, they can simply disappear into another dimension. They can teleport. They also have huge cave networks where they live. And that's shown by the fact that the regions with the highest activity have a lot of caves, usually like the Pacific Northwest or Vancouver Island, or that's one place they can live away from, safely, without being seen. There's also, they have those connection with the star beings. So they are not limited to our planet. And since they have been here for much, much longer than us, because we find petrified human-like footprints around the world that are dated 200 or 300 million years, larger than human usually, which shows they've been here a long, long time, with the dinosaurs. So, and then there's been other star beings that have come and gone from this planet, and there were civilizations on this planet before us humans, long, long before us humans. So they also can be found on other planets or on spaceships. And that's another way they have to travel. Otherwise, they can go with their interdimensional ability. They can manifest everywhere, including in people's home, through telepathy, anytime, anywhere they choose, or through other paranormal phenomena. Sometimes a gift appears on your table, or you hear knocks on the wall, or a grunt, or there's a lot of ways, a whisper, they can manifest their presence. People find tree structures. They're more, usually it's easier to find them in the woods, but sometimes in suburban area, or even like city parks big enough. So that means they can basically manifest wherever they want. But of course,
but you were saying, people may see a tree structure. I missed part of what you were saying there.
Yeah.
So it's an actual, it's like something like a tree fort, or what do you mean by that?
Well, the Sasquatch build tree structures, have different shapes. They are often teepee shaped, but there can be anything, square, X's, anything basically. It's a work of art that many people walk by and don't notice or don't pay attention. But if you start paying attention, you look at it, you notice it's very intelligently designed. Often there's weavings, and the way things are interlocked is required some kind of engineering. And what are those things? They're communication devices. They leave signs of their presence, and most people won't even notice or just walk by. If you know who they are and what they do, you can know, oh, okay, they left a sign here. Some other times they leave stick arrangements on the ground, could be a design or some symbols. That's an invitation to communicate. If you see that, you can interact, offer, you leave an offering or any kind of interaction, telepathic communication, for instance. So express
So
your,
what kind of offerings? What kind of offerings could we offer?
everything works basically. Well, some things better than others. Let's see what you would give to a good friend you respect and love, like an elder you want to approach. But they're not fussy. Well, first, try to avoid any kind of junk food or, plastic and artificial stuff. Much better to offer. One of the most common practice is what they call the spirit plate. The indigenous do that, and I saw the Sasquatch also do that. You take a plate, or it could be a piece of bark, and you find around a place you want to consecrate, and you put a little bit of all the different types of food you have in it. Or if you don't have food, you can put a little bit of every plant, every essence of plant that grows around. First, it's a meditation that makes you commune with every essence, every living form of life there, and honor them. Other things you can leave, a piece of hair, a pinch of tobacco, like natives do, cornmeal in other tribes, anything, a stone.
So how about a stone? How about a crystal? Like I teach people like making offerings for nature spirits to really create that rapport. I'm getting this is really similar.
Yeah. Well, that's a way to communicate and to express your intention. The most important thing is to express your intention clearly when you offer something.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Instead of, like you can toss something out there, but if you just, take a moment to make it sacred, maybe a little altar, or maybe a place you shoot, a special place. And there's a lot of, it's a good way to have a response and feedback and communication. You acknowledge.
Thank you. But make it sacred, very key. From your heart, very key. Wow. So what is their role here? Have we gotten to that much? We've talked a little bit maybe, but this is a key part of this webinar.
Okay, well, we'll try to cover this one. Well, they're all basically, they're caretakers. And like every intelligent species on any planet, that comes to realize that's what most intelligent species should do. Take care. Take care, be the gardeners, be the watchers, watch over, and live in symbiosis, in harmony with the environment. And they have done a much better job than us humans in a much longer time than we have had.
Sorry, you're gonna probably be frustrated with me, but there's so many ways to take care of the land, take care of nature. So I'm wondering, do they go and activate certain areas? Do they work with springs? Do they help to clear denser energies in certain areas where maybe some humans had been partying and drinking too much beer and being too rowdy? Can you speak to some more examples of what is it they're doing that is really helping Mother and helping nature, helping the forest, helping where they live? I think this is really, really important.
Well, first of all, they're protectors. They have often appeared or even interfered sometimes in, for instance, logging operations. When their forest is being cut down, a giant virgin rainforest, for instance, and stuff like that. There are cases I've seen myself would plant a tree upside down on the road, for instance, or they would turn a bulldozer upside down, or even there's cases where they throw rocks or logs, but in all those cases they throw them near the people, not at them, to like a warning, just to warn them, like to hurt them. That's one of the things, because it takes protectors, and especially them, they've been built strong with very high abilities, psychic and physical. But every intelligent species, as I said, is also responsible. The planet we're given to evolve on, and before them there were other species that were caretakers of our Earth until it came to us. What else they can do about from protecting? They love, basically. They learn communication with all the animals. They know all the medicine plants of the forest, and they basically caring is loving, and they basically interact and enhance this life energy of their environment.
Okay. They're heightening the energy with their love field. Yeah.
And they do the same with
Co-creatively.
ley lines or power spots or energies. They will sometimes leave the spirit, little monument or offering or something to energize those places.
Wow. Interesting.
So they're like the first and greatest shamans on this planet. They basically, that's why they have been teaching indigenous medicine people, because they basically have more experience than us in doing this. And they want to help us becoming the caretakers we're meant to be. They can show us how. And also to reconnect with our cosmic family, because we're not alone in this universe. And that widens a lot our perspectives and consciousness to understand that we're part of a greater whole, a greater cosmic chain of evolution.
Oh yeah, definitely. Fascinating. Gosh, should we get on to the next question? There's so much to cover here, and I'm looking at the time. We're doing great. So their gifts, their intelligence, their sensitivities, you've already been talking a little bit about that, but would you elaborate a little bit more?
Basically, close to infinite possibilities, what consciousness can do. And this is starting to be understood by modern science, that physical matter is about 3% of the energy that we can calculate and perceive in the universe, which means 97% at least of the energy is non-physical, which leaves the materialist science missing out on the whole story. People who just want material proof, they don't get very far to learn what's going on out there. But when we understand we live in a multiverse and multi-dimensional universe, existence that we are part of, and that our consciousness is not limited to this little 4D linear space-time continuum we're so used to, and we are often trapped and led to be trapped in. We realize that our consciousness is creating reality. It's not a metaphor. It's literal. Existence, the first condition to existence is consciousness. And consciousness not only interacts with matter, it also manifests. That's quantum physics. It would be too complicated to go there deep in that, but that explains how.
Right.
that explains how, let's say, all the highly evolved spiritual beings, of which I would say most Sasquatch are part of because they've had this longer evolution. Many star beings are spiritual beings of different nature, have this understanding beyond the physical box. So they know they can travel. We can potentially travel, teleport, travel through space and no time, and travel even through time, which is because the linear time is like a projection of an information database that is eternal, that is beyond linear time, past, present, and future. So that explains, in book 2 of the Sasquatch Message to Humanity, they asked me to go deeper into explaining the different dimensions, what they are, and how they interact. And we have modern terms to explain this, like antimatter and black matter and so on. But are other terms like etheric or astral plane refer to those same dimensions of existence. So with that under knowledge and practice, some very highly evolved spiritual masters and mystics, shamans, even among us humans, can attain what they call the siddhis in Sanskrit, the mystical powers, like appear, disappear, teleport, materialize things, and all those things, simply because they understand the fabrics of the universe and how consciousness creates reality.
Right, right. Fascinating. Our human potential is to reach there eventually, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that the little bit I understand in the visions I've been given by Mother Gaia about the new earth is what you're describing is where we're headed, that they never left those realms, Sasquatch. We with humans kind of fell a bit. So is it okay if we get to the final set of questions here for you, and then we'll open up for Q&A?
Sure, if everybody's ready.
Yeah, so the final question that I gave you a few weeks ago is, what are they calling for humanity to do at this time of great change? I think many of us probably have a sense of that to some degree, but I'd love to hear what you're hearing from them now.
There are some very clear warnings. Basically, it's like the basis of all this. Go back to natural cosmic law, cosmic order. Creation has rules, and it's intended to work well this way. That means also to remember our soul, our non-physical entity. Because through our soul, we find our true essence. We are spiritual essence. We also can connect with other beings through empathy. But our soul, a robot, cannot do that. So there's big risks humanity is facing right now. And two of the most, well, there's many, but one is geoengineering, because messing with natural weather systems, with powerful weaponry, as it's been done for 70 years at least, create, that's the cause of any climate crisis, if there is one. We manipulate, well, some human factions manipulate the weather to manipulate history, basically. And that has long-term consequences and is very harmful for the ecosystems and for including us humans. Another very dangerous risk that we all face now in this phase of our evolution is the transhumanist agenda. And that again is playing God and twisting the law of nature and trying to bypass, twist the law of nature, whether by manipulating genetics or introducing cyborg, human to machine interface with their integrated chips and their artificial intelligence. Like, it's already being done increasingly, actually. So that's a very, very dangerous path, because there's been other races across the cosmos that have tried that before us. And actually, some of them have passed on to us those technologies and those karmas. So what is
Like
humanity?
Atlantis.
Yeah. So what is humanity going to do? Are we going to realign ourselves with the natural and cosmic law, which is direly needed for our own survival, for the sort of the future evolution of collective consciousness? Or are we gonna just let those artificial agenda build their metrics and control our destiny? And there is the answer that they have given me is that both there's many prophecies that have foretold what's happening, that there are two paths, two ways that are splitting. And both of those ways will lead to different outcomes and results. We cannot prevent or stop someone who chooses to take another way, but everyone will get according to the directions they head to. So as individual, we have to reconnect with our soul, remember our spiritual essence, and abide by those natural laws that maintain everything in balance, the cosmos. And we will eventually evolve into higher consciousness and a better world, while in parallel, there will be this artificial cyborg society that is being developed. It's going to last a while, but it's not sustainable, so it's not going to last forever. There might be races from the stars that have turned into cyborgs, and that they are direly needing to reconnect with their soul now, and that's why some of them are interested into us humans.
Okay, this is where we could. This goes deeper and deeper. I'm looking at the time. First of all, what you shared was just profound. Just the pieces that you shared, they're big. And one question to you, and then we'll open up for questions. The natural and cosmic laws, are they listed in any of your books or all of your books, or do you have a list of them? Or I think we all may have a sense of what that means, but I'm just curious.
There's probably an infinity of details about them, but basically there's a certain fabric, the universal matrix we are part of, that has a coherence and that has a significance, that a meaning that keeps things together and functioning. And when we start messing with that, thinking we're better than nature, as some scientists do now, that's when we see the consequences, the imbalances that are created. So to describe in a few words this cosmic order, it can be seen in the fractal geometry that is impregnated in everything from the subatomic particles to the galaxy clusters, that certain patterns, certain ways, for instance, the spiral, certain polarities, positive, negative, that hold all of the universe together. Those things tell us when we read them, what is the law of the universe?
Right, right. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. So I'm gonna look at the chat right now, and I'm seeing if there are any questions. I'm wondering. Okay, Glorious has a question. I've wondered how to stop geoengineering. I think that's beyond this webinar tonight for us to focus on that. However, be a really good activist. Okay, so Kim has raised her question and has. All right, go ahead, Kim. You're gonna need to unmute yourself. It's good to see you.
Hi, good to see you.
I don't know if you want to turn your video on. You're really faint.
Okay, let me get closer to my computer. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to turn your video on or not, but go ahead. Go ahead and ask.
I'd prefer not to. I'm not really video ready, if that's okay.
That's all
Thank
right.
you so much for holding this, and it's amazing to be here. I have kind of a little quick question, and Sunbow mentioned it a little bit. Since they're multidimensional or interdimensional, do the Sasquatch eat, and would it be like for just like a general pleasure of the senses and the physical when they're here, or like and if they do eat, what do they like to eat?
Well, they
Thanks,
can eat,
Kim.
yeah, they can eat pretty much everything like people. There's a many story that they're seen gathering berries or fishing or hunting. I found myself once well-rolled deer skin and very clean bones that were left by them, for instance. But eating or sleeping and all those are reproducing are physical needs that we experience once in the physical. If they can, if we could switch between the physical and spirit world, and we could spend time, for instance, without feeling hungry or tired or sick, I bet we would spend a lot of time up there. And we would probably once in a while want to come and eat down some blueberries or something. But we would like to be in this higher dimension most often, and where also aging is totally on a different scale. So that's why some of them can live thousands of years in our human years.
Interesting. So there's another question from, thanks, Kim. Mary is asking, is there a good place in the southeast of the US to meet with them, a special, I think she meant forest or region?
I must admit, I've been through the 48 lower states, but not so much in the southeast, and I haven't had encounters there. Probably the only quarter of the United States I haven't had encounters in. So, but there are people, there's many stories. There's Georgia, the Appalachian, there's groups there in the North Carolina, South Carolina, around there in the Appalachian. There's a lot of sightings and encounters. Some people also communicators are out there.
I mean, I have a friend who saw one near DC in Northern Virginia. So, okay. Question from Jennifer Shoup. My experience with the Sasquatch has been super loving and informative. Have you found the same? They told me they like potatoes. They told me in a journey they like to visit the void.
Yeah, it's a bit of what we were just talking about. They can travel in another dimension where they're not bound by their physical needs. So, and how wise and loving and funny they can be. It's beyond words. It's everyone has different experiences, but the more you get to learn with them, communicate and interact. First of all, it's not everybody's path, because some people have an experience and get traumatized and they just want to shut it off, and that's all right. But you have to overcome the fear and go with the right intentions, which is love, peaceful, friendly, wanting to learn. Honesty, no ulterior motive, because they are telepathic and they will just not listen if we try to trick them. It's not gonna work. So yeah, they're great teachers. There's so much to say about them. Time flies, but I guess we could move to another question if there's one.
Yeah, Jennifer saying thank you. All right, another question. Douglas, you sent me a list in the email you sent me, Douglas. So I'm kind of picking on you right now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if
Well, yeah, some of the questions Sunbow had kind of answered, so I won't go along that. But it's interesting. I've read some accounts, alleged accounts from humans who basically have been blessed with being allowed and, and invited through the portal into the Sasquatch, the land of the Sasquatch, and their descriptions about the land and the beings there, and just sort of the vibrancy of the colors and just the whole sensations reminded me of, I mean, Mayor sent out a group email about a month ago or so, where Mother Gaia took her on this amazing journey into the ascended 4D Earth, and the similarities between those two were remarkable. So I was wondering, is that where the Sasquatch live? They live in the 4D Earth that we are evolving into, or does that make sense?
Yeah, well, in parallel dimensions, there's which can be either space-time, another timeline. There's definitely portals, and that's being more and more studied even by NASA and official sources. Some exist naturally, some can be created artificially, like with particle colliders, for instance. And some can be created by consciousness with enough no understanding and knowledge. Sasquatch do, and I've seen them. Well, I'm not the only one, many people, but I've seen sometimes half a Sasquatch appear, wave at me, and disappear, or a big Sasquatch disappear between a tree this wide. Or there's things that are beyond the laws of physics as we know them, that they can do, that is easier to understand once we realize the multi-dimensional existence, nature of existence. And interdimensional, I use this word as the ability or knowledge to move between dimensions.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? I would love to wrap this up in the next 6 minutes, because I'm sure that Sunbow is tired after giving so much of his energy here. So we do have time for another question. Jason Price is saying they are from the 7th dimension and can project themselves into lower dimensions. Nobody wants to raise their hand, ask another question? I do want to, one of you,
Yeah.
go ahead.
There's another question in the chat room. Do the Sasquatch perform or do healings to nature and to humans?
Oh, I missed that. Thank you.
Definitely, like any highly evolved spiritual beings and who are by nature caretakers. They do, in cases, it can help some people with healing. And they have, for me, starting with soul healing, by understanding, for instance, what's we have to work on, what's the ancestral karma, the collective karma, karmic contracts, and what we have to deal with. Because also we have the power to heal our bodies with our consciousness, and there's some techniques, some I've practiced that are quite very efficient with sufficient practice, as well as, of course, all the medicines of nature, the plants, for instance, I've used all my life, and I will carry on because that's what we've been given. So the Sasquatch are definitely familiar with all these things. They can leave a gift or guidance to bring you to do what you need to do to heal. And in my experience, that's more likely how they work to help you find yourself, your healing, work on your healing. What other than that, they can still, at times take away pain or something, but they will definitely help us become the healers.
Thank you. So Iona has a question. She raised her hand. So go ahead, Iona, you can unmute
Yes,
yourself.
thank you. I love this, but I'm really new at it. So forgive me if this sounds really dumb, but if I hoped to connect with a Sasquatch in a very special but somewhat public place, do I use verbal words or just my soul?
Well, it's a good question, and it's often asked. It's basically, it starts with your soul, your intention, what you project, the energy you project. Are you coming in fear or in love? Are you coming with expectations, or you have something to offer? Are you coming to offering friendship? So if you come with these good intentions, they will see it, they will hear it, and it's been proven over and over. Don't try to trick them, because you'll be the one.
I just want to learn. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, but when we express our intention clearly, it could be in words. It kind of manifests our thought and intention. So it's a good way as well, like I call, you can say, prayer. When we can pray interiorly, or we can pray out loud to transmit this energy to the universe, and the universe will hear. So every high consciousness being in the universe can also hear us.
Thank you.
So from your heart, drop to your heart. That's, again and again, if you want to communicate with trees or the nature spirits, or even with another human in a really beautiful way. But I am certain, I'm not the Sasquatch expert that Sunbow is, but from your heart. So you guys, it's 8:59 Eastern Standard Time. I thank you. Yeah, Josie, he did answer your question. Thank you to everybody who joined. Thank you especially to Sunbow for taking this time and doing a lot of preparation with your notes for this. This has been really a pleasure. I'm going to be re-listening to this and again and again and again, probably when I can find the time. But his books, please get Sasquatch's books. Yeah, Sasquatch's books through Sunbow. And you're welcome to those of you who are saying thank you. And if you're interested in the work I do, or the work the Great Mother Loveway does, you can go to the website. All this information will be in the replay email that's going to go out to you guys in the next 2 days. Okay, so lots and lots of love. And I will also say this, And Sunbow, forgive me for this because I didn't ask you in advance. I was going to put in the information for the replay, please don't share this with other people because this was, registration. But then I got a very clear message. No, this information really needs to go out. So I wasn't going to put that in there, and I haven't sent that email out yet. So Sunbow, is that okay?
Definitely. Yeah, this information has been going out, and I've been involved in spreading it. So everyone want to share. For me, everyone is free to share what they like.
Thank you. Thank you for your huge heart and your huge commitment and surrender to them, because I know this is a huge path to surrender. So everybody have a wonderful rest of your evening or day, or whatever time you're in. It's been wonderful to meet all of you. And to those whose questions came forward to me one-on-one, I'm really sorry that we didn't go there. That's a whole other conversation. So much love, hugs, and enjoy the rest of your evenings and days. And thank you, Sunbow. Mwah.
Thank you.
Bye.